Okay, welcome back to Unapologetically Black Unicorns. It is always exciting to come back and have a conversation with a fantastic, fantabulous, miraculous, magnificent, I have to use all of those words, guest. And this is a guest who's joined us before, and it is Dr. Pat Deegan. So, Pat, I'm going to just have you do a brief introduction of yourself, and then we're going to jump into our topic for today.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me back, Karis, and thank you for all of those who are going to listen in today. I am a person who's beaming in from Massachusetts in my home office, and I just had my 70th birthday, and so I'm very proud of that. And I was first diagnosed with schizophrenia as a teenager, and like so many of us, was told that I could never be well, and that I needed to stay on antipsychotics for the rest of my life, and to essentially avoid stress, no romance, no work, no education, etc. Lucky for me, and like so many others, I went on to forge my own path of recovery, and I did not do it single-handedly. I received good support from all sorts of good people along the way. Today, and for the last 40 years, I've been carrying a message of hope for recovery. My mission to change the mental health system so no one ever gets hurt in it again.
Yeah.
But I'm in it, and people say, why aren't you retiring? And I'm like, because there's still a lot of work to do. I ain't done yet.
Yeah.
And it's going to take all of us in this effort to humanize the sometimes not so human services. And
Yeah.
so that's really what I'm about. I run a small but mighty company of disruptive innovators, and we create lots of tools, lots of technologies, and really the core mission is to safeguard human dignity. And we feel we do that by creating tools and technologies that allow individuals voice and choice to come to the very center of the care, the clinical care team. So that's really what I do. I'm also a mom. My daughter Cheyenne is 27 years old, and my partner Deborah and I have been together way too long, way too long, like going on, I don't know, since the late 1980s or so.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So first of all, happy birthday.
Thank you.
I'm kind of sort of right behind you. I got a little bit of ways to go, but I'm right behind you.
My
And
baby sister.
it's like every time I hit a significant birthday, like 50, 40 significant, 50 significant, 60 significant, I think back in the day of when people said I wouldn't make it this far. You know what I mean? And that's really kind of one of the things that, number one, I thought about myself, because I really didn't have a desire to go on many times. And then also the messages I had received from the quote unquote mental health system about sort of, I call schizophrenia for me, the diagnosis, a diagnosis of doom. It was kind of like this diagnosis of doom. And I thought about our last conversation. We were talking about personal medicine coaching. And one of the things that you were just getting ready to kick off at that time was another thing called medication empowerment. But I hear all the time, and I read it in the papers, if we could just get people to take their meds, if they could stay on their meds, why don't they stay on their meds? He came off his meds, she came off their meds. And it all seems to rotate around this magic thing called meds that will just fix everything. And you hear a little bit of sarcasm in my voice because I think we don't have good conversation around medication. It's either you take it or you don't. You're compliant or you're non-compliant. And there's so much space around all of that to move us into the power of conversation with the person who's being prescribed medication. So I was really hoping you could tell us a little bit about what is medication empowerment, and maybe from your own personal experience, why did this idea come to you to even create a way forward using medication empowerment?
So I need to say, from my own perspective, I am not what you might call anti-psychiatry or anti-medication. I do know that medications can be very helpful if used wisely and with the voice and the choice of the individual at the very core of a shared decision-making process about what's working and not working. So I do believe that meds can be helpful. I also know through personal experience that meds can be incredibly unhelpful, and that meds, instead of supporting the recovery process, and by recovery, just let me be clear, I just mean getting to the life we want to live. That's all I mean by it. That meds can actually work against this process of getting to the life that I want to live. And that's just not right. And I think that, as you mentioned, we see increasing emphasis on involuntary measures and involuntary mandates to use these drugs in ways that are not necessarily in the best interest of the individual. And given the profound risk-benefit ratio, and I'm thinking in particular of antipsychotics or mood-stabilizing drugs, drugs that are used to treat the so-called serious mental illness, right? Serious mental disorders. These medications are not just benign. They can have devastating, unwanted effects. Navigating that can be extremely difficult, and as you mentioned, really requires conversation and space and deliberation and a process of shared decision-making. So medication empowerment is a guided intervention that helps peer specialists and nurses and psychiatrists and therapists and other members of the care team support people in navigating what I call the journey, because it is a journey over time, of meeting the challenges that come up when we're using psychiatric medications. But if I say, where did this whole idea come from? It started with my own first experience on antipsychotic meds. I was admitted to a hospital at the ripe old age of being a teenager, and in I went. And, within a few hours, I was given high-dose antipsychotic meds that knocked me out for 3 days. I don't have any memory of anything other than waking up in a bed 3 days later. And at the same time, it's so surreal, surrounded by nurse and psych techs and family members and psychiatrists telling me that these drugs have returned me to normal. So there's crazy me, psychotic me, and then there's the normal me that I knew. And the idea was that I take the meds and I go back to regular me. This wasn't regular me. This sets up what I call a third state, which I call medicated, me on medicine. Me on medicine was a me I did not recognize. Me on medicine was a me I did not want to be.
I was just laughing in my head when we talk about like this is not the me I know, and everybody else is happy with that me over there because I'm less psychotic, but I'm not these other things. And when you were talking about compliance and non-compliance, I think about, when do doctors become compliant to listening to the patient? And many times they're non-compliant because they're not listening to what our needs are. So it's like, take words and throw them right back at where they came from. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just exactly what happened when you were talking about, kind of, this isn't me, and why is everybody saying this is me as normal? That's not normal for me, kind of thing.
Right.
And the other thing is that as again, I'm listening to people, I'm trying to understand, what is the motivator, right? There's a motivator, there's a motivation for people to say this is so important in this way. And I think it is because of fear. I'm so worried that if my loved one isn't off of medication, they're going to become homeless. They're going to have interactions with the criminal justice system. They're going to be dead because either the police have killed them or they've died on the streets or died out in the open, right? So I am also trying to balance the fear that is happening on the, either it can be family members, loved ones, whatever, about what will happen to their loved one if they're not on medication. And trying to speak into that, saying, okay, but it's still about conversation. We still have to have the conversation. Just expecting people to swallow a pill or take a shot and, kind of go happily along without conversation is really doing an injustice to the dignity of that person and to your loved one as a full human being. And so I'm wondering, as you're talking about some of these things that people struggle with, how are people buying into medication empowerment? Is it still like, no, we don't want to have conversation. We just want the person to take their meds. Like, where is that sitting now?
Yeah, well, I think like any new idea, and medication empowerment is a very new idea. It's not just recycling the same old, because what we're doing that is so radical is we're bringing the power of the lived experience of using meds, the understanding that using meds is a journey that takes place over time. And then medication empowerment is a whole suite of animated videos and tools that staff, peer specialists, individuals, families can use to support people through these challenges of using meds optimally to get to the life that they want to live. And what the field focuses on, and I would even use the word perseverates on, what they perseverate on is methods to ensure compliance. And so if we look at the major methods that are used day in and day out, and we're talking rates of non-adherence that are routinely found in systematic reviews to be between like 46 and 59, 60%, rates of non-adherence, is they lack insight. They lack insight into the fact that they're ill, and therefore they don't know any better. They have anagnosia. They just can't see that they're sick. And so in medication empowerment, if somebody's saying, I don't need meds and I'm not crazy, there are some ways to talk with people about that can be very powerful. So medication empowerment includes that dimension, videos to help the person identify with the challenge, and also professionals to understand it, and then tools that can actually help. What works on population samples in terms of research analysis does not get down to the individual level. That's me.
Yeah.
Right. And so medication empowerment takes it down to that individual level, my perspective on this, and then helps me prepare to participate in having that conversation with my care provider. And what I love about medication, and obviously I love it. I do. I think it's a game changer. I need it used everywhere. It's so darn good. I think that the other powerful thing about it is out in the world, it's just assumed you come into the mental health system, you're diagnosed, and bang, now you're working with a psychiatrist. We all know how to do that, right? I don't know. And so medication empowerment has this whole area where we study, how do we speak to a doctor? How do you safeguard? What are your goals for medication treatment? Not your husband's goals for your swallowing Haldol, not your goals. So this is a powerful set of tools. Download them to your phone. They're portable, they're mobile, they're entertaining, they're non-threatening, and they're real.
Yeah, and it's not
about get that conversation going.
Yeah, it's about the conversation, and it's not about, because the other thing is, well, you see, peers are going to tell people not to take their meds. And that is, first of all, not in our job description. Our job description is to be in that way totally agnostic, right? What we did in our own life as far as taking meds, not taking meds, is not how we support another person to do what we did, because it's individual, right? But it's much more around helping that person, as you say, unpack what they wanted. Like sometimes we don't even know what we want to do because nobody ever asked us, right? To take the pill, so you took the pill, take the pill, so you didn't take the pill. Nobody asked us. So being able to open up that door and having a tool and resources to be able to drive that conversation, because maybe as a family member, I don't know how to have that conversation because I haven't done it yet. Right. So being able to watch the videos and have those worksheets and things available to sit with my loved one to open up that conversation. I was just thinking too about the power of, and I'm going to use a technical term here, but I was thinking about the power of therapeutic alliance. That at the end of the day, the other thing that research has shown us is that people are able to participate in treatment. I'm not going to say it here. I'm going to say participate in treatment far more often when there's therapeutic alliance. It accounts for 70% of the difference, if you will, of people's ability to participate, right? So what's the other 30%? It's not medication. It's a whole bunch of other things. And part of that 30% is medication. So even if the person is taking medication, it may not build a person's ability to stick with the treatment, if you will, right? To participate in the treatment ongoing. It's a therapeutic alliance or trust relationship that you have with that provider, whoever it is, that really also helps. So being able to have these tools so you know how to have that conversation, that the provider is also working alongside you in that conversation. So I'm thinking, at least for me, and maybe I'm speaking from my own lived and or living experience here around, yes, the distrust I had of my psychiatrist. And my psychiatrist even said to me, because I was involuntarily hospitalized at the time, he said, "You don't trust me, do you?" And I was like, "And why should I? I don't know you." Right? Like, you're some strange person who just rolled up in here. I'm locked in here. I don't want to be here. And I'm just supposed to lay down and trust you. No, I don't trust you. But I found it very curious that he was able to, and I wouldn't say he was antagonizing me. He was noticing something and wanted to get deeper into conversation about, well, you don't trust me. And I'm like, no, I don't trust you. I really don't. And he said, well, is that something maybe we could work on? And I said, yeah, well, trust does take time and work. Yeah. So now that you've brought it up, if that's what we're working towards, fantastic. So actually medication came off the table because it was more about who are you, who am I, and what is our relationship. And so, as I was thinking about related to helping the person be able to talk to the doctor and creating using the worksheets, how that can also help a family member too. So, I think this is where families and loved ones get really stuck. They're so worried, they don't know what to do, but now you've given them a tool.
Totally open up understanding, dialogue, empathy for their loved ones, and also constructive ways for families to be involved in
Yeah.
psychiatric care. I think especially to folks who are under guardianship and or who are not yet emancipated, younger folks, to have your parents in the room and the parents and the psychiatrist or the nurse practitioner driving the prescribing. There's a terrible feeling of powerlessness and
Mm,
victimization in that,
mm,
raising up the voice and choice of the young person and making the psychiatrist and the family member or the loved one just part of allies and supporting you, getting to how you want medicines to support you. Like
yeah.
one of just a fundamental, I mean, this is so basic that we do in medication empowerment. We help people create what we call power statements, which expresses my goal for how I want medicine to help me, right? And so in a power statement, it basically goes, doctor, I want you to help me find a medicine to blank so that I can blank. Doctor, I want you to help me find a medicine that will help me not focus on voices so much so that I can be a good mom to my toddler and get her up each day on time. That's an N of one study. That's the goal of treatment. It is not a reduction in the PANS scale. I don't want to see that.
Like, who's going to write that in the power statement? I
Right.
would like to, so I could have a
Yeah,
reduction in my,
right.
whatever pans or, whatever. I always love it when it's like, ooh, clicky, clicky. Things start to click, right? When I was not, I was very much fighting against taking medication for quite a bit of time, right? And there's the tension, there's the fight, and all we were doing was butting heads, butting heads. Take the meds, no, take the meds, no, take the meds, no, right? But heads, butt heads, butt heads. We weren't getting anywhere. And finally, I guess my doctor was over me, and this has been recorded elsewhere, like in maybe a New York Times article or LA Times article. I say that my psychiatrist fired me because he was like, I don't know what you come here for. You're not going to do what I say. So why are you coming here? And I was like, well, okay, then bye. And I like walked out. I was like, okay, well, if you're going to fire me, I'm out. And I like walked out, got home and was crying to my dad. I think my psychiatrist has fired me and I don't. And he's like, well, then why are you crying? He's right. You're not doing what he says, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, but at least he talks to me. I could show up in my pajamas and he'll talk to me. Nobody talks to me because I don't make any sense, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, well, go back and tell him. So I called him back and I said, can we try this again? And he said, yeah. So I came back and he said, what is it that you would like to do? And how is it that I can help you get there? So that
Yes.
was a power statement without a power. We didn't have a power statement back
Yeah.
then, right? And I said, I want to be able to go back to school. Had to stop my I think I was in my master's degree at that time. I said I want to go back to school. I'm struggling with reading and retaining information, and I need help with that. That's my goal, to go back to school so I can finish this flipping degree. And he said, okay, I think I might have some medications for that. And he goes, let's actually look at the research, because I know you like research. Let's look at it. Let's sit and read it together. Really, what he was doing, he's assessing how my reading was and my retention, which was horrible. And he said, oh, wow, this is our goal. So we will prescribe this. And every time you come in, we'll just read a little bit of a paper. We'll read a little bit of a book together to see how we're doing on that goal. I will tell you, the butting heads stopped, the tension dropped, the trust went through the roof, because he was finally listening to what I needed. But I didn't have the knowledge to know that I had to say that to him. And it took that disruption and my father's brilliance to bring us all back together and make it about, but Karis, why are you going? Karis, what do you want? It was the power statement. I didn't have a power statement, but that's what it was.
That's what it was. So imagine if we could get the world to adopt medication empowerment. One of the fundamentals is every person receiving psychiatric care really should, for our own empowerment, develop a power statement which puts out from day one, what does successful treatment look like for me? And I don't care how much my PAN score is coming down, and that's the positive and negative symptoms scale.
Mhm.
I don't care, am I achieving my goal for my power statement? In your case, am I being able to retain academic material and achieve my academic potential? That's the N of one study. That's the outcome that matters. I don't care about reduced recidivism. I don't care. All the other measures, no.
Yeah.
If I'm not returning to the pizza shop and working then treatment's a failure, period.
Exactly. And when I did go back to school, whatever I was taking, I I was doing the drooling thing. I was like, oh, I'm sure, number one, that doesn't look too hot. And number two, it's getting my paper all wet. And number three, I cannot read my notes. And my notes were like going off the side of the page. It was a mess. It was a ginormous mess. And I said, you know what? No. And I was like, look at that. What am I supposed to do with that? I'm there. I'm, I guess, semi-conscious, but this is not working. So we switched it up. Now, this just recently happened with my father, as I said, and I do speak about my dad on the podcast. He's given me permission, but he's older now. He's had his 90th birthday, and, he's going through his own health stuff. And he was telling me, I don't know what's happening. I was writing and the bank won't, bank won't catch the check because they can't understand my handwriting. My father has impeccable, beautiful, cursive handwriting. He's of that generation. So I looked at it and I was like, oh, and I said, wait, what medications are you on, Dad? And looked at them and I was like, so let's talk to your doctor about this medication. What are you taking it for? When's the best time to take it? What is getting in your way of the things that you want to do? And if this medication is one of those things that's impeding your ability to beautifully write what you like to do, you want to do these things on your own, what are some other alternatives? So let's write all that down and you have this conversation. And the doctor was like totally on board because everything was written out in a way that he could see it was this causing that, my father wanting this for this reason. Okay, this is how we can switch it up.
Love it.
I mean, just to be able to have those conversations versus I don't want to take this anymore. He was able to say why it was a struggle for him, right? And then the doctor listening to that. Of course, we have to have doctors who will listen. So when it comes to anosognosia, and I know you have sections on this when people lack insight, etc. What does that look like? Because I think that's a hard one for people to actually believe. I always say people with anosognosia or lack of insight, guess what? They have insight into something, and we're not asking them what they have insight into. We're asking them, do they have insight into what we want them to have insight, not what they want to tell us? So that's me. Why don't you share a little bit about what it looks like in medication empowerment?
Yeah. So I come from a similar place. It's like, when I think about my own experience in psychiatric care in the early days, they kept saying and reinforcing to me that the conundrum is that Miss Deegan, you lack insight into the fact that you are ill. We'll know you're getting better when you gain insight on how sick you are. It just becomes this incredible,
Yes.
tautological circular reasoning. It's hysterical. And over time, what I learned is, no, I don't lack insight into me. You lack insight into me, doctor. You lack insight into my resilience. You lack insight into what matters to me. And so, how do I think about it? So I still think that there's ample room to move, lots of space. So let me probably the best way is to share a story, right? So there was this young man diagnosed with early psychosis. He was, just turning 18, I think. And all his life, since he was a little boy, he just wanted to be a first responder. He wanted to be one of those people, those community people who just love serving the neighborhood, love serving people, wanted to be at every fire and at every ambulance ride to be there. That's what his thing was. And he gets diagnosed with early psychosis. And he refused to take meds. I'm not sick. I'm just having a hard time. I'm not sick. So yet again, he got out of the hospital and he went off all his meds, and he lacked insight according to his discharge plan and all of that. And he was standing in a line in a checkout at Wally's World. And he started hooting and hollering at voices that other people couldn't hear. And the cashier was alarmed and called security. And once again, he was taken by ambulance back to a psychiatric hospital. And so the circle starts again. You lack insight. You need to gain insight. We're going to drug you against your will until you gain insight. If we can keep you on drugs for 3 months or 6 months, maybe you'll get insight, and we'll do away with this anosognosia. And instead, what I did, this is a guy in my own community that I knew, and I asked him not about what he believed, because what he believed is psych meds suck and I don't want to be on them. I'm going to be a first responder. I can't take psych meds. You argue with people about what they believe. It's like arguing politics. It just gets worse. It doesn't go anywhere. I said to him, talk to me about being a first responder. What's so great about that? I don't get it. And so he talked about all of these values that he wants to live his life. He wants to be loved by his community. That cashier at Walmart was scared of him. And what we came to is he didn't like that feeling of being looked at that way. He didn't like the feeling of frightening his community. That's not, so by addressing not his beliefs, that would go nowhere, his values, what matters to me, the values I want to live my life by. And guess what? Slowly and over time, his use of medications began to shift to come more in alignment with his values of being a kind person who helps others in his community.
Thumbs up, claps, snaps, yes, 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 YASSS, yes, 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 yes. That this is the key. There's so many keys. You're dropping all this great wisdom and all these keys around how do we work with people as people, not how do we work as people as quote unquote patients, the one, the right? This is such a beautiful thing about and Dr. Beck, Aaron Beck, is, we all know, who developed cognitive behavioral therapy, and along with Dr. Paul Grant and Ellen Inverso, recovery-oriented cognitive therapy, particularly for people with schizophrenia who are deemed to have anosognosia, if you will, that these are keys. You're dropping them too, is that it is about the person's aspirations and how those aspirations tie to their values, and then getting those values aligned, getting them aligned. The more you do the opposite, and I think what's happening is we're doing the opposite of the value, that then they push away more and more and more, and we'll call that anosognosia, right? But really what it is the values are not aligned, as she said. So I just love that. That is so powerful. And I don't want to say it's an easy thing to do, but it certainly can get a person a lot closer to being able to support a person on their journey.
And so in medication empowerment, this is captured in a little short video. Like I say, it's mobile. It can be on your iPad. It can be on your phone. And you can watch it with a person under a bridge or in a soup kitchen, or whatever. You can do it. And then there's that worksheet to walk. You take immediately what you learned in that 3-minute video. And now the worksheet is like a heuristic that allows you to apply what you just learned So here are the things I value and want to live my life by. Here are my beliefs. Where is there a disconnect? Is there a disconnect?
This might be another conversation about LAIs, because there seems to be a belief that if we can just get the person in LAI with a modicum of consent, I have a concern it's not full consent. Again, that this is an easier way. Yet I've also argued that even LAI, long-acting injectable, even with a long-acting injectable, the person still may need to take medications by mouth for other things, which was the case for me. And though it seems simpler, and I've heard it's simpler for the system, it's simpler for the provider, it may be simpler for the person. At the time, I did feel, yeah, it's simpler for me, until I had to figure out how to take medication by mouth for another chronic disorder. And it does not come in a other kind of form. It doesn't come in a liquid form. It doesn't come in a intramuscular shot form. You got to take a pill. That by having done the LAI, nobody worked with me on how to think about how to take medications by mouth, and what was that? Why couldn't I take medications by mouth? What was going on, right? So I was stuck. I couldn't take the other medication, and I wouldn't take the other medication because I hadn't learned and hadn't had the conversation about what my struggle was around medication. Was it the reminders? Was it the daily problem? Was it swallowing? What was it? And I think that's my only other concern about LAIs, is that, yes, it may seem simple until you need something that won't be delivered that way. And we haven't worked through what the other struggle is about the taking of any kind of meds.
Yeah, I hear you on that one for sure.
Yeah. So as we sort of wrap up, I want to make sure, well, what I do with everybody, because this has been, you dropped like keys, wisdom, magic door opening. I don't know. It's just so much information. Is there any one last thing you want to leave our audience with before we wrap up?
Yes. Every single one of us can and have the total right to have a voice and a choice in finding the treatment that is right for us. That making decisions about medicine is a joint process, a process of shared decision making. And every time we meet with a psychiatric care provider, there are two experts in the room. Yes, the psychiatric care provider is an expert in things having to do with psychopharmacology. Absolutely. And that is not our expertise necessarily. However, we are the experts on ourselves. Only we know what it feels like inside of our body. Only we know what matters to us. The psychiatrist, the nurse practitioner cannot fix us. They cannot do it alone. They need us, okay, to do shared decision-making together to find the treatment that's right for us.
Yes, snaps, claps, thumbs up. I saw balloons going up in front of the screen. I love it. So, Pat, thank you so much for having this conversation. It's timely, it's powerful. I really do hope that it will make a difference as people listen to not just our personal stories, but the stories of others, and the fact that now we have tools and resources to move this forward. It doesn't have to be in a mystery box. You don't have to go behind the green curtain. So thank you again. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Karis. It was a delight.
All right, folks. So y'all know what to do now. As my producer says, your job is to like, comment, subscribe, yada, yada, yada. But the most important thing to me is that we share this information with our networks, with people we know, because we never know who needs to hear the wonderful information shared by our guest. And until next week, we will see you on Unapologetically Black Unicorns.